This episode is brought to you by Anytime Fitness. We may talk a whole lot about sports, but when it comes to keeping fit ourselves, there's definitely room for improvement. I hit this point early July. I was just like, I am not in good enough shape. I started trying to walk at least 15,000 steps a day or hiking or just anything to keep my legs moving. Now it's the end of 2023. I feel great. I had a physical 3 weeks ago, and the guy was like, you're doing great. You're doing better than you were 3 years ago. I felt great. Whatever your goals are, progress is possible thanks to Anytime Fitness. Get a personalized plan and support from an expert coach anytime, anywhere. Visit anytimefitness.com to try Anytime Fitness for free. Start to train for your life. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. See website for details. This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian software like Jira, Confluence, and Trello help power global collaboration for all teams so they can accomplish everything that's impossible alone. Because individually we're great, but together we're so much better. Learn how to unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.com. Atlassian. Tap the banner or visit this episode's page to learn more.
Welcome to Through the Ringer. I am your host, Tate Frazier, and we are live in Las Vegas from NBA Summer League. And today we have a jam-packed show. We have three great guests. We have our guy Woz coming on to talk about Wemby versus Britney. We have Zach Collins, starting center for the San Antonio Spurs, coming on to talk about Wemby and what the Spurs will look like this year. And we're going to also have KOC, Kevin O'Connor, come on and talk about the winners and the losers of the offseason. Again, this is Through the Ringer. Let's get to it. All right, joining us now on Through the Ringer. You've seen him before on the show, and we're sitting in Las Vegas right now. I am petrified because I have a huge drop right behind me, precipitous fall, but he is the great Woz, as you know, on the Ringer Podcast Network and the Ringer Network at large. Woz, how you doing, man?
I'm doing amazing, man. Summer League is my favorite NBA holiday, so I'm happy. It's like a family reunion of sorts being here. So being down here back again it's a good time.
Yeah, it sounds like you went to J. Cole's concert last night.
I did. I was screaming.
I can tell by your voice. Yeah.
No role models at the top of my lungs. It was crazy.
Yeah, shout out to Uncle Phil. Always
holding it down.
Always holding it down. Also nice to see J. Cole courtside, right, for Wemby's first game in the NBA.
Of course.
And I think a lot of people assumed that game was going to be the biggest headline of NBA Summer League, Wemby's first time playing. But what really happened was it involved Wemby, but it started with a dinner at Catch. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, Oz, because I want to talk about the biggest battle happening right now in basketball. It is pop culture, it's NBA, it's pop icons, it's international, it's global, it's whatever you want to call it, but it's Britney Spears versus NBA player, a.k.a. Victor Wembanyama. So first and foremost, how shocked were you when you saw that headline?
I thought it was fake. I thought it was like an Onion situation going on.
The Onion's not even that funny. You know what I mean? Like no one could make this up.
Dude, I was like, wait. Britney Spears got I was confused by the headline, but then, you get into it and it's so many mixed signals, cross signals, right? Of things just getting lost in translation, literally. And Britney Spears, when you're that famous for that long, you assume everybody knows who you are at all times. And if you run up on somebody to say hi, it's not a big deal. You're Britney freaking Spears. However, she hasn't been popping for a decent amount of time. Security might not have immediately recognized who she was, and it's their job to protect this dude. But people say like, a small woman like that could not hurt a 7'5" dude. I'm like,
have you seen Britney Spears' Instagram? I think there's a chance she could have done something. And this whole story is insane. Like we talked about, Victor Wembanyama's first press conference from Las Vegas at NBA Summer League was about Britney Spears. I mean, if you had that on your bingo card, what even is that? What does that even mean? And the best part about it is, now he has like these Britney fans. I would call them stans. They're not really fans. Right. They're insane people. If you think Britney's crazy, meet her fans, and they're going at this man. And as American basketball fans, a lot of people were kind of clutching their pearls. They were worried about this French guy who's going to come over. He's going to insert himself into the GOAT debate. A lot of people were trying to figure out who's going to stop him. Is it Chet? Is it who is it going to be? And it turns out it's Britney Spears. Dude. And it all started with the tap on the shoulder.
You know what I think
allegedly.
Is the most interesting part of it is that I don't think Britney Spears runs up on Anthony Edwards 2 and 3 years ago, right? I think
not even Zion.
Right. I just think it speaks to the power of Wembanyama's celebrity already, that even a Britney Spears knows who he is and kind of wants to fan out and run up on him, right? And I think that's what's different about Wemby and what's happening with him on the Spurs now. It's like, even yesterday, the first game, you were there, the crowd was insane. Yeah. People were losing their absolute minds, praying that this guy would just make a 3-pointer or something. It was almost like watching the Beatles for the first time if the Beatles flopped.
Yeah, it's like if the Beatles went out there and they were kind of out of tune and everyone's like, okay, well, this is what we waited for, this is what we're looking for. And it honestly comes back to like a larger question about the pressure of being a 19-year-old coming to a different country, playing a different sport, really. Yep. Like the FIBA game is totally different than the NBA game. Yep. So there's a lot of he's got to get used to that. But do you think it had any impact? I know some people have speculated, but do you think just kind of that hoopla? Obviously, like there was, contradictions in the statements, and then Britney's coming out. She says that she's not going to file charges, which is nice for Victor, but it was a distraction, right? It's like the definition of a distraction.
Yeah, I think it sort of showed very early on in the game. It seemed like he had some jitters, but I think that's to be expected. Like when you feel packed. Like the whole world is watching you, and you got to go out there and perform. It felt like he was a little bit off of his game, but that's to be expected, man. He's a young guy. All of this stuff is brand new to him. As much as he thought he was some famous, well-known guy in France, like, this is a whole different level of a fishbowl, and so I'm not surprised it affected his performance at NBA Summer League Day 1, but I think the young man has a bright future ahead of him.
Absolutely, but do you think that Britney Spears watched the game? I think that was the other big question. Do you think Britney was watching and she was trying to prey on his downfall?
She absolutely watched that game.
Good. I think so.
She's
from Louisiana. She likes sports.
She absolutely,
she
absolutely read every single press accounting of the situation.
Yes.
And included in that is like, he's in Las Vegas to play this game, blah, 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 blah. So she definitely had the voodoo dolls ready and cursed that man's performance last night.
Are we worried long term that like Britney Spears versus Wemby, like he's going to have to deal with this for the rest of his career? Like he's going to, every time he posts something on Instagram, and he's like, great game, great win last night, fellas, like glad we beat the Blazers. It's like Britney fans, like shut up, like respect Britney, she's a bigger star than you. Do you think this is going to hang over his head, or is it going to be a blip and not a bomb?
So I'm old enough to have seen Nas and Jay-Z make up, Meek Mill and Drake made up.
Right.
I believe that
time heals all wounds.
Wemby and Britney can come together, call a truce. I don't know what their collaboration would be, because can Wemby rap? Maybe he'll do. Remember Tony Parker used to rap. Maybe Tony Parker writes some French
his
bars.
Guy. Like Tony is one of the people that he had his jersey when he was a kid.
Course.
It made him a Spurs fan. He looked up to him.
Get Wemby on the track. I think that'll solve everything. Or at least put him in a music video, make him a love interest in the video, like a Tyson Beckford type of situation.
Wemby, avoid that at all costs. Please don't do that. Do you think there is any sort of PR calculation here from Britney? Do you think that she sees the hot new ticket, everyone's talking about him? Again, Britney used to have residency in Vegas.
Yeah.
Doesn't have it anymore, obviously. But do you think that she saw this moment and was like, this is my last chance? This is, let me tap back in here.
I'm never surprised.
Celebrities are wild.
By the cynicism of celebrity. I will never be surprised by...
Narcissism's a hell of a drug.
It is what it is. Like, once people touch that fame drug, it's hard to let it go, and it becomes one of those things where all attention is good attention. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Britney Spears specifically.
I'm Team Britney, by the way. I just want to put that out there.
Oh, so you're going against Wemby.
Well, I'm a USA basketball guy, so I have to defend USA basketball. I did not think it would happen like this, but I'm glad that Britney is also a USA basketball fan. She was like, this is what we needed. This is what we all needed.
Well, I think...
One last stand.
I think cooler heads will eventually prevail, and everything will be okay. But that is just an incredible way to start your career in the NBA with a beef with Britney Spears of all people. Somebody call Christina Aguilera.
She's got to be around somewhere. Where is that genie and where is that bottle? We do not know. We will figure that out. Quickly, let's talk some basketball about Wemby because, Britney Spears aside, he did play. We did see it. He goes, 2 for 13, 9 points. Not exactly stellar from any means, but, he did show up. He had some nice, defensive moments in general. So we're not freaking out right now. We're not hitting the panic button on Wemby.
I mean, to freak out after one summer league game would be probably a mistake. Probably
dumb.
Probably.
Yeah. But they'll do it. People will do it.
I know. I mean, I'm one of those people. I called Josh Giddey a bust after like two possessions because he got ripped at half court. But no, what I want to say is Wemby is not going to be some offensive powerhouse in his rookie year in the NBA, right? So we should expect some growing pains on that end, but I think he can be very impactful from day one on defense, and I think he showed some of that yesterday. You even seen him block a three-point shot of a 6'10 guy yesterday. These are things that you just don't see in our league every single day. So, I think yesterday was indicative of a young guy in a big moment, maybe getting a little bit too big for him, but it's a long way to go. I think he's going to be fine.
And I've seen a lot of conversations about him being very Spursian. Do you think for his sake that he is like going to try to get off the radar? Because we know Tim Duncan lives in San Antonio and nobody even knows.
I don't think so. I think Nike and the people behind him are completely invested in him not being off the radar. Like, they want him to be as visible as possible, and it's already happening. Pop stars are running into this guy, so he's good. He's not gonna shy away from the spotlight. He wants all of this. I don't know if you watched his interview with JJ Redick. He was like, look, I'm preparing for this. I'm ready for this. I want this. So he's trying to make himself into an international, global phenomenon, and so no, he will not be under wraps at the Riverwalk.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, for Wemby's sake, maybe he can be someone as big as Britney Spears one day. We'll see what happens.
Let's pray for that.
Appreciate you, Waz, and thanks for breaking this down.
Happy to be on every time.
Of course.
Are you surprised? I'm going to ask Waz this because you've been a bit of a Wemby skeptic.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's healthy though. I'm not gonna furrow my brow.
Okay.
I think that's good science.
Great.
We need Wazes.
But I didn't realize he would draw this sort of crowd and have this sort of celebrity. I knew he would be billed as this great prospect, but he seems to have the hype of not even a Zion, but even like maybe a LeBron.
Yeah, no, it does really feel like that because the way that people were waiting with bated breath for him to make one shot or even take a shot, it's pretty crazy. But I think that's indicative of the team he surrounded himself with. Obviously, you can never discount Nike's impact on the hype machine and this kind of thing. And so, yeah, people are excited about this guy. He's gotten a ton of media coverage and coverage that isn't just, oh, wow, there's going to be a great player from France coming to the NBA. Like, no, this is the best sports prospect since Jesse Owens, right? And so people are excited about it.
Yeah, they are. We were talking about where this fits in like the hierarchy of like electric summer league moments. I wasn't in the building for the earthquake game, the Zion game.
I was there.
Yeah. I've heard people say that. Watching it on TV, you could kind of pick it up on that. Lonzo took it to another level, that class. Lonzo's electricity.
Yes.
The fact that he was playing for the Lakers, obviously a big difference there. But Wemby, when he came into the arena, I felt a little something. I mean,
amazing.
You could feel. It just felt like
the gravity, the energy,
the spirit was moving. Wise. That's what I'm saying. It's just kind of like that church service where you're like, yeah, we're rolling here. Like, but the game.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't quite the same thing as the Metro Ignite scrimmage from October, which was balls to the wall insane. This one didn't quite live up to that.
All right, joining us now from Las Vegas at Summer League, he is Spurs center and former 10th pick in the 2017 NBA draft, former Gonzaga Bulldog. He is the great Zach Collins. Zach, thanks for joining the show, man.
Appreciate you having me, man. Good to be here.
And you're in your hometown. You just told me this. So you played at Bishop Gorman for 4 years. You won 4 state championships, right, at Bishop Gorman? Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Technically 4. I was moved up at the end of the year, my freshman year. I wasn't on varsity all year, but yeah, I moved up. So technically, like 3.5.
No, you were on the team. You were on the team.
Exactly.
This is like your Michael Jordan story. You know what I mean? That you didn't make the team. It's a little adversity,
right.
And then you started your senior year, and you know the rest is history. But I want to talk about Summer League because that's always fascinating. We have obviously Wemby, who is your teammate or future teammate, coming up. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But just for your journey into the league, your 10th pick, you're a lottery pick. You go to the Blazers. What was that experience like, and how much did it kind of just like hit you once you got to Summer League? Like, oh man, I'm in the NBA. This is real.
I think my first game, really, you know, I remember it. I'll never forget it. It was a kind of a rough game for me. I missed a lot of shots, had some turnovers, and just didn't really feel comfortable out there. And it was a big jump from where I was at in Gonzaga. And you put in a lot of work pre-draft, coming in there, and you feeling good about yourself. And then I had kind of like a little check there, a little wake-up call, and it's like, oh, it's not going to be as easy as I might have thought it was. So that was the first time, and after that, you know, it just kept getting a little easier, and it wasn't a gradual incline. It was ups and downs and stuff. But that was the first moment for sure.
Yeah, and in Gonzaga, you know, you were the first McDonald's All-American to go to Gonzaga, which was that was a nice little tidbit that I found. I didn't even realize that. And when you get to Gonzaga, you're playing behind a fifth-year guy in Karnowski, so you're basically coming off the bench behind, you know, the star of the team. You guys make the national championship, so you get to the NBA, you get thrust from a 6-man role to now they want you to be the face of the franchise. They want you to take all these shots. They want you to be a star. How much of that was kind of like in your head too, where you're like, I have to change kind of who I am as a player, and it's outside of a team construct?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an adjustment. You know, you go from, I came off the bench a lot in high school up until my senior year. My senior year, then I started.
Because you had what? Chase Jeter was in front of you,
Chase
right?
Jeter, Steven Zimmerman,
Right.
So I had those 2 guys in front of me, and then so my senior year, then I started, and then in college went back to the bench, and then Summer League back to starting, and you know, so it's all those things. But you know, for me, I just tried to keep my game the same, whether I was coming off the bench or starting, and just try to be ready for wherever they needed me. I know in the NBA, being a professional is super important, so I just wanted to kind of, you know, make sure that the teams knew they could use me wherever.
Yeah.
That was my mindset. And
I've seen a lot of conversations, and we'll talk about Wemby here in a second, but they're talking about the big man, and they're talking about how he's got to put on weight to play the 5 in the NBA. Most people assume you'll be the starting center for the Spurs this year upcoming. You've had to put on that weight. You've had to bang. You've had to do all that sort of stuff that a big man is expected to do. How much of, you know, a physical toll does that take, and how much of an adjustment period is that for you trying to put on that weight?
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance between, you know, putting on weight but just getting stronger in general. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people might look at a guy's frame and think he's not very strong or powerful, but if he's getting his lifts in all the time and he's strong and his core is really strong, his legs are strong, that'll show up on the basketball court. It may not look good lifting, and he may not look super jacked, but that's what's most important. I think that a lot of people get caught up in having to like put on weight versus getting strong. So I think weight always helps a little bit when someone's leaning on you, but
not too much weight.
Yeah,
that's the other part. It's like a fine line,
especially when you're so tall. Your body really can't take that much more pounding if you put on 40, 50 pounds it wasn't expecting. So, it's definitely a line you gotta walk carefully. But for me, I definitely came in pretty skinny. I came in at like 220 my rookie year, and now I'm between 240 and 250 all the time. So it was definitely a change.
That's impressive. It's you know, it's not like just putting on 13 pounds. I see all these headlines that come out. It's like guy put on 15 pounds, guy puts on 20 pounds. Right. You know, there's a fine art to all of it. So let's talk about the number 1 pick. The Spurs are kind of the story of Summer League because of having Wembanyama, having, you know, Popovich courtside. It's kind of like this resurgence of the Spurs in general. I always find Summer League fascinating because there's like the mercenaries that are here trying to get their shine, and then there's the team that's involved. So how much are you and the Spurs and everyone that's here trying to like cultivate some sort of environment where it is like a team environment instead of a bunch of mercenaries going out there?
I mean, you said it, man. Summer League's kind of chaotic. It's just like you said. There's guys fighting for jobs, but at the same time, there's guys that have a roster spot that are just trying to get more reps and just trying to get more familiar with the system. So, but yeah, in Wemby's case, I mean, it's something that it's the Summer League part of it. It's all those things we talked about, but and now it's adjusting to what the Spurs do and how we play, and it's just adjusting to the NBA game in general, for him.
He's a FIBA guy, so it's
exactly.
different.
It's completely different. So all those things, it definitely makes it a little hectic out there. So yeah, but he'll be fine. We're excited, obviously.
Yeah, everyone seems to be excited, and other than Britney Spears, I think everyone's really fired up about it. But Wemby, he gets drafted number 1. Even the lottery night, the Spurs win the lottery. Everyone's celebrating, high fiving.
Yeah.
Did you reach out to him once he got drafted, or even before, just to say, hey man, I'm here as a resource or anything like that, or you just try to let people have their own kind of process?
Yeah, I reached out to him when he got drafted, just to congratulate him and tell him how
good
excited.
Teammate. Zach Collins put that out headline. Good teammate.
Yeah, appreciate it. But yeah, just reach out. Tell him congratulations. I know how I felt when I got drafted. It was kind of like a little bit of a relief. You've worked so hard for your whole life, and I know how hard he's worked. So just to get that, I just wanted to make sure that he enjoyed that night because it only happens once. But then just to also tell him how excited I am to play with him, and he's going to help us so much. So yeah, I definitely reached out to him, and then I met him just a couple days ago. So. And
how was that meeting? I mean, like obviously a guy through the media lens, but just to see him in person, talk to him in person, have that experience. What was your big takeaway? What was your first impression of Wemby?
So I told my friends. I know what it's like when you guys dap me up now or give me a hug because
yeah, you felt that. You're like, I feel small.
That man is huge. Like he is tall as hell. Like I'm not used to hugging somebody and like they're on top of me. I felt like a little kid. So yeah, he's just massive, like just super tall and. But he was cool. Like I told him the same thing. Congrats, like good to see you. And he was like, nice to meet you. And but that was really it because we had the vets had our practice, they had their practice, so. That was really it, but yeah, it was a good first meet.
How much do you guys coordinate? Because I saw DeMar DeRozan and the Bulls; they're all sitting courtside. All the Cavs guys were there yesterday. So, how much have you guys, as a Spurs unit, the actual team, talked about going to the game, supporting, sitting courtside? Like, is that a coordinated effort? Does it come from the top, or is it kind of like dependent on the players?
Yeah, I think we all want to be there to support him. It's definitely just we got to show them that we're all here as a unit. We're all here as that's the Spurs way. It's a team game with us. Camaraderie, respect, good locker room is all things that we try to preach. So being there for him is important.
I got to ask you about your coach because we saw him, my producer and I, Kyle, we saw him yesterday. He was dressed like Adam Sandler. He's got like just big baggy basketball shorts on. He's like wandering around the casino by himself, and you forget sometimes like that's one of the greatest coaches ever. Mm-hmm. How fun is it to soak up the knowledge and be around someone like Popovich? And obviously you had Mark Few in college too.
Man, it's like a pinch me moment every day. Mm-hmm. Every day we get to talk and have more dialogue, even just outside of basketball. I mean, you've heard the stories of Pop. Like he just teaches everything about life, not just basketball. So it's just great. I couldn't have asked for a better place at this stage of my career to keep learning. And the one thing about Pop, you say the way he dresses and the way he acts, like as smart as he is and as much as he knows the game inside and out. His advice and his game plans are always very simple, very straight up, and you kind of think it's this magical terms that you've never heard any coach ever say, but he keeps it very simple, and I think that's a big tell on why he's been so good.
Are you a big wine guy? Do you like wine? Has he tried to force that upon you a little bit?
I wouldn't say force, but he definitely
he just keeps buying it for you.
Our team dinners are always the best wine is available for us, and he's huge to wine. So I've definitely I'm not a wine guy, but I definitely like it more now than I ever have.
I think it's smart to play into it. It's like if you don't even like golf, just go to the course, right? You know what I mean? And just have fun with it, and just be in the environment and act like you want to be there, kind of thing. Right. So that would be my advice there. talk to you about, you got injured in summer league. So you get drafted 10th, you come in, you play a couple games, and I think it was an ankle injury, if I remember correctly.
A quad.
There you go. Yeah. So what was that like? Because we're dealing with Scoot now. He's getting an MRI. They're figuring that out. But when that happens to you, what does that do to just like your mentals, I guess, when that happens? And how do you deal with that fallout? And how was it for you, obviously?
It was kind of tough because I just had a rough start to summer league, and I just wanted to kind of play my way into it, keep playing better, and I couldn't do it. I just got hurt. So it was just frustrating, but at the end of the day, it's pebbles. Like, you want to be ready for the season, and I was able to get my body right and put in a lot more work and get ready for the year. So it was fine, but in the moment, I was definitely frustrated, and especially for the top guys, everybody's here to see them. So they want to come out there and prove to everybody why they were that pick, and now that's kind of taken away from them. It's kind of anticlimactic, but it'll come back around.
Yeah, and you go to Portland. I would say the start of your career was not ideal probably from your vantage point, but you persevered. Now you've got this great opportunity in San Antonio. You're going to be most likely starting next year. What kind of advice can you give to younger players just about that? Because you get out and sometimes things are great and everything's hunky-dory and you shoot right to the top, and sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Right. So how did you deal with that, and how did you get yourself in this better situation?
Just keep going, man. Just
right, it's a marathon.
Just keep showing up. Keep treating people the right way. Keep having a good attitude, being positive. Bring people up around you when you're going through stuff. I think when people see that you're down and they see that you're feeling sorry for yourself, they don't want to be around that. And I think it's really important to have a good positive mindset through it all, because at the same time, you got to realize everybody's going through something. It's not just you. Like, I think if you isolate yourself and you think, poor me, like, that's kind of selfish in a way, because everybody's going through something, whether it be injuries, family stuff, money stuff. Like, so I think when you put that into perspective, for me in any ways, it helped me be much more positive and have actually fun getting through all that. It was a process, but it was fun.
And you were in Portland. You're with the top 75 guy in Dame Lillard. You weren't there for so long, but just being able to witness the way that he works and being in that franchise and seeing all that from a distance, and then obviously seeing it up close. How important was that for your career also to have someone like that?
It was huge, man. Like, I always tell a story. Like, we came in for our first summer league practice, and him and CJ were. Our practice was at probably like 10, and they must have started at 7 or 8, because we walked in at like 9 and they were just drenched in sweat, like working middle of the summer. Like, they have all the time in the world to just rest and recover, and they're going to be playing 40 minutes a night come season time and having to average 20, 25 a game, but they're in the gym working harder than everybody. So just for me to see that day one was huge. And then to go through, 4 more years of watching how they went through wins and losses, went through ups and downs, went through a lot of winning, and how they just stayed kind of here the whole time. It was great for me to see. I'll definitely take those experiences with me the rest of my career.
And you see all the headlines, right? Because everyone's talking about Dame this, and then you got all the loyalty memes over the years, right? Mm-hmm. So just knowing him personally, how funny, or how do you view it? Just knowing the reality of the situation, and then the outside looking in, and how do you parse through that? Do you even keep up with free agency or trades and stuff like that as a player? Or you just try to keep your head in the sand a little bit?
I'm more of a head in the sand guy, and just
probably for the best.
Show up and see who's out there. But as far as Dame goes, I mean, I know him personally, obviously, and he's a good dude, man. At his core, he's a good person. So I just know that through all this, he knows he made the right decision based on his career, and he's done so much for that city, man. I think when people start to pile on all the narratives on social media, it looks worse than it is.
Right. There's a reality, and then there's what the perception is.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think he's so mentally tough too. Nothing is really going to crack this guy. But it's unfortunate to see all the narratives, because I think up until this point he's had a pretty, flawless image of who he was as a guy, and now this is kind of, that's kind of taking a hit because of all these narratives. So, but I know him. Everybody who knows him personally, who's played with him, like they agree, like he's a good dude and he'll be fine.
There's one thing that I have to ask everyone that is a veteran, and it's probably one of my favorite things to learn about. It's rookie duties. So when you're a lottery guy and you have rookie duties, it seems like people like to mess with you a little bit more. There might be some classic ribbing that goes on. But how excited are you guys with the Spurs to give Wemby some rookie duties? And will he have to deal with that? I mean, is that something that will happen and we'll witness?
It's kind of awkward with our team because we're so young. Like, we're all like under 25. I mean, I'm 25, but everybody else is under like 23, 22. So like, to be a vet and that age is like, it's just a weird feeling. So I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll definitely give him something to do. Just
carry the bags, Wemby. You know what I mean? Exactly. Maybe you get some strength that way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the move.
Farmer carried all the bags.
Yeah,
exactly. You can do
well,
that.
That's great. A couple more things. I want to ask you about just not even watching the Spurs, but how much are you watching other teams in Summer League? Even guys that you saw get drafted, maybe guys you liked in college. I mean, are you watching anyone, or are you just kind of like, it's the off season, I'm turning my brain off a little bit?
I don't watch anyone in particular. I just try to watch as many games as possible. I love watching basketball. At the end of the day, I'm a fan, and I miss it being on TV. So I'm definitely watching all these games.
Absolutely. Well, one last thing. Any predictions for the season? Maybe it could be personal predictions or just like what you expect from the Spurs team in the first year. But what is something that you're looking forward to, I guess, this season with the Spurs?
Looking forward to being better on defense.
There you go. Well, I think you got some help
exactly.
at the rim.
That's
That'll
why
be
I'm
nice.
so excited.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be Wemby's going to help us so much at the rim. So we were terrible last year defensively. So I'm excited for that.
Well, there you have it. He's Zach Collins, starting center for the San Antonio Spurs. Las Vegas native, by the way, so that's also great to be back in your hometown. Appreciate you coming on the show,
Thanks
man.
for having me, man.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Welcome back to Through the Ringer. As promised at the top of the show, he is our third guest, but maybe our favorite guest on this episode because we're shooting from the hip here because it is the offseason. Look, it's low stakes, KOC. That's what it is right now. And we're going to do a little winners and losers. Shout out to our boss, Bill Simmons. This is one of his favorite tropes in the world of media. But first and foremost, KOC, how does it feel to be in Vegas for Summer League? Do you feel like you're taking it feels like a lot of hope and optimism, right?
I love Vegas Summer League. It's the best. I mean, everybody here is a hardcore basketball fan. They're here to have a good time. Vegas is great for this time of year, man. I love just walking around, seeing people with their jerseys on. I saw a Papa Giannis shirt at Thomas and Mack the other day.
Yes, it was a T-shirt jersey, Papa Giannis. I was shocked by that. I'm amazed that it seems like everybody has seen this guy. So if anyone can find Papa Giannis, we need him on the show. Maybe he'd be our fourth guest. But that was awesome. The funniest part about Summer League also is that you run into random players. Like I saw Asheen Thabit the other day. Jody Meeks we saw the other night. There's just random people, random players.
Zach Collins.
I just saw Zach Collins. So there's people everywhere. We saw Chauncey Billups with golf clubs going to play golf. Is there anyone that you've seen, KOC, this week where you're like, wow, that was a nice little blast from the past?
No, not yet.
No.
I made a beeline to my section.
Right, you're smart.
Sat there and watched the two games.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm walking the concourse with our producer, Kyle, and I'm like, I'm looking for more people with Papa Giannis shirts and things like that. So it's always good. A lot of Lonzo Ball love, by the way. If you're a fan of Lonzo Ball, a lot of Lonzo Ball Lakers jerseys in the building out here. But as promised, we talked about winners and losers. I want to start there. So we'll start with the winners first, and then we'll end with the losers. We'll go good news, bad news. So one of your winners, we'll start with your first. We're going to do two. So your first winner of the offseason, I've seen a lot of people talk about the Lakers. A lot of people talk about, maybe even the Warriors with the Chris Paul trade. But KOC, for you, who's one of your winners?
Let's go with the Heat role players that have left Miami.
I like
Max Strus going to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Gabe Vincent to the Lakers, riding the success of Miami Heat in the playoffs. Now they're in both situations now where they get paid, they got good contracts, and it's awesome basketball situations. For Strus going to the Cavs, kind of fitting between Mitchell and Garland in the backcourt, and then with Mobley and Allen in the front court, Okoro at the wing. Strus is that shooter that they need. It's perfect for him. And Gabe Vincent, the spark plug that he was for the Heat throughout their postseason run. He had these hot games. He can play make a little bit. He's a tough defender. That's 100% what the Lakers need. And for LeBron James on the offensive end, Vincent is such a high IQ player that I think both of these guys, they had big playoffs. then they got big paydays, and now they're in perfect situations still after leaving a team that has championship hopes. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them. And it's kind of like the Miami Heat mission statement, right? You come here, you work hard, you get in shape, you play your best basketball, you play on a minimum deal or a low salary, and then you go get paid somewhere else, unless you're Duncan Robinson. But pretty much everybody else goes and gets paid by somebody else. So shout out to those guys. The Cavs in general, I just like what they've done so far in the offseason. I know it's not in vogue to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers and say how, you like their team, but I like their team. I also like they signed Ty Jerome in that backcourt. So they address some things there. I like that. We got Jomi back here, our social media producer. He's a Lakers guy. He's smiling as you talk about Gabe Vincent. How great of an offseason was it for Rob Pelinka? This was a guy much maligned about a year, maybe like 16, 18 months ago, but right now he looks like he's got things figured out in LA.
For sure. I mean, I think with the Lakers, the Rob Pelinka criticism for the Russell Westbrook deal, I get it. At the same time, that was kind of a LeBron James clutch-driven decision.
There was a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
But other than that, you look at what the Lakers have done, whether it's undrafted players like Austin Reeves, who they just re-signed on like a real valuable deal.
Was it $56 million,
54, right? $56 million. And then Max Christie, who throughout Summer League has looked good. He looks like a 3-level scorer. I mean, like with the way he's developed since college, it's almost happening a lot sooner than could have anticipated. He was a 40% guy off the catch from three in the G League and the NBA last season with limited opportunities for the Lakers squad. But this year in the Summer League, like Christie, how do you not give this guy minutes despite everything the Lakers have added this offseason? Like, are you surprised Christie's looked as good as he has? Because I didn't see it happen this soon personally, but he looks great.
Well, Christie came out, in my opinion, a year too early, but also if you're Max Christie, you can convince yourself, if I'm going to get a first-round grade, I'm going to go play in the NBA and get used to that game. So I know Tom Izzo was very upset about him leaving. 5-star guy, someone that they were expected to make that leap in his sophomore year. But he goes to the NBA, plays with the South Bay Lakers. He gets some confidence. And I think the real thing for the Lakers, especially if you're looking at LeBron's timeline, it's now you have pieces that are young, that have value, that you maybe can move at the trade deadline to get you some pieces for a real title run. So if Christie has value, if Jalen Hood-Schifino has value, if Maxwell Lewis from Pepperdine has value.
Castleton.
If Colin Castleton has value.
He's looked pretty good.
I love Colin Castleton.
He's looked good.
He was a great player at Florida, and it was kind of weird even coming out. The bigs, as much as we're talking about how important they are, again, someone like Colin Castleton gets overlooked, and now he has potential to maybe go somewhere else and get some playing time. So I like what the Lakers have done, and I know we were talking about the Heat guys, but with Gabe Vincent coming in, he's going to have great opportunity as well, and maybe he's even a guy that some teams like. If he's not really fitting in there, they try to move him for someone else. So
absolutely,
there's a lot that the Lakers can do. They have flexibility, and it felt like for maybe even a year ago, it felt like they were a little bit trapped.
The Lakers over time under Pelinka have proven to be, with Buss, the brothers in that front office as well, they have proven to be one of the best drafting organizations in all of basketball. And so far, this class that they have, and with last year's with Christie developing, I think they're continuing to prove it again.
Yeah, and I loved, we talked to our guy Jovan Buha. Shout out to Jovan, the Lakers beat writer. He was just talking about Max and how much they've been impressed with him in Summer League. And not a lot of people watched the Warriors-Lakers game last night because it was after Wemby and people were tired, but he really did show something in his first game here. So shout out to him. It was good to see that. All right, so that's one winner. It's the Miami Heat guys that got paid. Who's your number 2 winner of the offseason?
The Phoenix Suns as a whole, as a team. They make the Bradley Beal deal, and people are saying, well, what about their bench? They have all these scorers. And then they added so many guys that I'm not remembering all of them off the top of my head. It's impossible, the long list of guys. Eric Gordon being the big name. They just got Bol, who's a fun player, not a good player, but maybe he can be good in that situation. All the wings that they added, the guys that they brought back, the Suns are now in a position that I feel like they have depth. They have versatility. They now are in a position with Frank Vogel as their new head coach. If he can get something out of DeAndre Ayton that Monty Williams lost, Vogel now as the head coach of the team has lineup flexibility. He can play big. He can play super small. He can play with rangy wings. So for the Phoenix Suns now in this situation, I think when you talk about how to beat the Denver Nuggets, how do you get past them? It's not about matching size with size. You can't stop Jokic. You play him single coverage, he kills you. You double team him, he kills you. The way to beat the Nuggets is going to be doing a better version of what the Suns did when they went to 6 games in the semifinals last year, and that's with a perimeter-based team that can crush them from 3, that can have a guy who gets hot any night. And now with Booker, Durant, Beal, they have those engines, and then they also now have the supporting pieces who can space the floor effectively and make teams pay. It's going to come down to DeAndre Ayton, though. He's not an addition, but they need him to be an additive value this year and not a minus like he was last year.
And Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton, it just felt like that relationship, for whatever reason, felt fractured at some level. It just felt like there was not a whole lot of back and forth and collaboration. So like you said, a new voice in there. Frank Vogel is very defensive-minded, a great defensive coach, obviously an NBA champion, also someone that knows the Los Angeles Lakers very well, especially their top 2 guys. So that's also another thing that you kind of have in your back pocket as far as what they have moving forward. And when you have 3 legit stars like that, if you do have injuries, because KD is getting older, as the time, father time, involves himself in this, you have some security now. And Booker is still, it's Booker's team, right? That's what Beal said. He said, I came here and I'm playing on Devin Booker's team. They seem to accept that, understand that. And what a strange world we live in where Kevin Durant's the number 2 option. I don't think that's true, but that's what they say.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes he is, though. That's the thing with this team, what it's going to be like. Sometimes KD is going to be your second option. There will be nights where Booker is on verge of a 50-point night and Beal is scorching hot from 3, where Durant is the best floor spacer in all of basketball, and he's playing some small ball center, and he's your third option, but he's still Kevin Durant. And that's why the Suns, I think, are currently the true threat to the Nuggets in the Western Conference, more so than the Lakers, who I think we talked about, like they're right there, but the Suns, just with that perimeter, they just have so many ways to beat you that I think for Denver, it's going to have to come down to, can we just make this team have a poor shooting series? Like, it would be epic. I hope those teams rematch.
Yeah, it feels like in my head there's like 4 teams in the West that if I close my eyes, I see them potentially in the finals. One is obviously the Lakers. I think the Lakers are in there. The Suns, the defending champions, the Nuggets, and then the Warriors. And I think there is a weird mental part of this with the Suns and the Warriors where if they do match up with Draymond coming back, getting his money, with Chris Paul now going against his old team, if he still is with the Warriors, we'll see about that. But that could be a fascinating matchup as well. So, and you mentioned Bol. So I mean that also is that's going to be a fascinating matchup for anyone.
It'll be super fun at the least. Right. That's what Bol is. He's a fun player.
Yeah, he's a summer league superstar. A league pass guy that you want to see. All right, so these are the winners. We like the winners. Let's talk about the losers, because we live in a society people like to talk about the losers. So what is one of your teams that would be the loser of the offseason?
Let's go with the Sixers, but specifically James Harden, because with Harden, he is in a situation.
His leverage is lost.
He lost all his leverage, and he goes into free agents. Well, he picks up the player option after exploring things through back channeling, and says, "Oh, wait a minute, there's nothing out there for me. Nobody wants me anymore."
Not even Houston. You can't even go home.
You can't even go to Houston. There's the report about Ime Udoka, who did not want Harden back. He didn't think it would work there. So for Harden, he lost all his leverage. He opts in. Then he wants to go to the Clippers. Nothing has happened yet because even the Clippers don't want to give up a heck of a lot for James Harden in his mid-30s with a big payday coming next offseason, when they already are kind of like walking on thin ice with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George after shopping Paul George around the draft. So for James Harden, he's the biggest loser of the offseason, and in my opinion, considering where he was just a few years ago at the peak of his powers, and now we're seeing that decline and now the lack of interest.
And you got Daryl Morey, who obviously has a long relationship with James Harden. I saw at the Michael Rubin's white party that they were having like a little meeting with the owner there, and they were talking about things apparently with him and James Harden. So if he does, play this 1 year out, it's kind of like his last dance with the Sixers. You have Nick Nurse, first-year head coach. What does that even look like? And you have, in case you forgot, the reigning MVP and Joel Embiid coming back.
I mean, I think for the Sixers, they could still be a very good team. Tyrese Maxey, if he takes a leap, that could be very helpful for them. They've made some moves around the edges.
Saw him at Summer League, by the way. Mad Max walking around.
Matt Maxey was also at the white party as well, right?
He was at the Aria last night taking pictures with the kids. He's the best.
I mean, I think the Sixers, they're a great regular season team, and the Harden and Embiid pick and roll still is a very good combination. But Harden is now in a position where after this season, Nick Nurse is going to want to install some more motion concepts. It's not like they're going to be playing like the Warriors or the Kings or anything like that. But with Nick Nurse, with what he did in Toronto, Harden, I'm not so sure it makes the most sense for him to dominate the ball because that limits Maxey's growth. So Harden, that's your primary thing. But will you just start shooting threes off the catch? Tap into who you were with Oklahoma City years ago. Is that even possible after what you became in Houston and who you still think you are today as a primary playmaker? I've always been a Harden guy. I love James Harden. He's one of my favorite players of the last 10 years, and sometimes I feel alone in saying that because so many people hate him and hate his style. But for him, this is an opportunity, whether it's with Philadelphia or a team he gets traded to like the Clippers, show like this next phase of your career, and then you get paid next summer. With Harden, I think he needs one more big prove-it year, and the evolution that he experienced last year with the Sixers as a primary playmaker wasn't quite enough. There's still more for him to show.
Yeah, and people forget, James Harden was a sixth man and basically Manu Ginobili 2.0 at one point in his career.
Yes.
So he went from that to being basically a point guard, and now he's, like you said, might have to revert back to his old ways to be more of a two guard.
Just elements.
Right.
Doesn't have to go fully all into that OKC version, just little pieces of it.
Yeah, so that's one loser, James Harden. Apologies to James Harden. Like you said, we're big fans.
Love him.
And your second loser of the offseason.
The Washington Wizards.
Oh, my God. Joe House. My goodness. I'm so sorry.
It's just for the sheer fact that you have Bradley Beal. It's a no trade clause. They got the most that they could out of the Suns. They got a ton of pick swaps. They bring back.
I like their draft.
Yeah, I like what they did. But now you get Bilal Coulibaly, who is probably one of the higher upside big swings that you could have had in the lottery. Honestly, I think Bilal Coulibaly could be one of the best, non-favorite rookie of the year bets with the opportunities he could get there. But you get, Jordan Poole. Maybe he can have a big most improved type of year.
He didn't look very happy in his pictures.
It's not about, he did not.
He did not.
He looked very sad, actually. He looked very disappointed.
Made me sad.
It did make me sad.
Yeah, pool party's over.
There's no life in his eyes in those photos. It was sad to see. But it's not, the Wizards are the loser because they just did not get the return for Bradley Beal that you would have hoped to get. And that's because the last 2 years, he was not the guy we saw score 30 points per game twice in a row. He was not the guy who is an all-star, an all-NBA caliber guy who earned that contract. So the Wizards, they gave him that deal. They gave him the no-trade clause. And it's just unfortunate it resulted in the way that everybody thought it would. But ultimately, the Wizards, hopefully they can spin this into a win with some of the other good stuff that they did. I'm just, it's too bad the Beal stuff didn't result better for them.
Yeah, I feel bad for the Wizards. I hope they figure it out. One last thing I want to throw at you before we wrap up here. I want to talk about Giannis quickly. Giannis is in China right now. He's doing the Nike tour. He's a little bit off the radar, but I do think...
Posting on Threads a lot.
Loves Threads. Big Thread guy, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But I do think that is the real story that is happening right now as you forecast the future. Giannis, what is he going to do? Is he going to run it back? Obviously, they get Middleton. They kind of keep things steady in Milwaukee.
Brook Lopez, too.
Right. But what does it look like once that group is done for Giannis? Because he's got a lot more years on the other side.
I don't know. I don't know, because ultimately right now, Brook Lopez...
A lot of teams are fishing about this, by the way.
Yeah, Brook Lopez is in his mid-30s. Chris Middleton, can he return to prior form pre-injury? He was not good after returning last season. Drew Holiday has said he's going to retire after this current contract. We'll see if that ends up actually happening. But for the Bucks, they are in a situation right now where these draft picks that they made, Livingston, Andre Jackson... Neither of those guys have proven to be good shooters. It's a weird fit. They have a rookie head coach and Adrian Griffin, who they got from Toronto. The Bucks are in a really uncertain position now, and I hope for Giannis that these young players and I hope that the older veterans all kind of work out, because I love Giannis, but I'm not overly optimistic about the Bucks situation right now. And I guess this is going to be, we're talking Dame as the conversation now about loyalty. Giannis has talked about wanting to spend his entire career with the Milwaukee Bucks. Will that hold true in the years to come if things don't pan out in the way that Bucks fans hope that they do.
And I will say there are 4 teams to watch out for when it comes to Giannis, because Giannis is one of the guys that is the face of the league. You got to talk about the Lakers, you got to talk about the Bulls, you got to talk about the Knicks, you got to talk about the Heat. So all 4 of those teams and the NBA at large will be involved to see where he will go. And I think it's good money. It's a good investment to put him in one of those markets. We'll see what happens.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
we'll see if Adam Silver can pull the same levers that David Stern would, right?
I would watch out for the Chicago Bulls. That's all I'm saying. So there you go. KOC, appreciate you giving us our winners and losers. It's the off season. It's low stakes. It's good times. Thanks so much for coming on Through the Ringer, man.
Thank you, Tate.
There you have it. I am exhausted. I am worn out. I am trying to get away from this window right now because I am petrified of heights, but it's been a great time. Again, this is NBA Summer League with the whole Ringer crew. This has been Through the Ringer. Appreciate everybody watching, and we will see you next week.